Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Sprouting Seed YouTube channel. My name is Lyria, and today's video is going to be about modesty. I did touch on modesty in the Godly Femininity video, but I wanted to dive deeper into this topic, so this is that video. So let's start with defining what modesty is. The biblical definition of modesty is respectable apparel. That's just it. The dictionary definition of modesty says that it's the appearance intended to avoid impropriety and indecency. So that's the dictionary definition. And I just want to clarify before we even get into this topic that there is no specific dress code regarding any type of clothing articles that we should or shouldn't wear. For example, the no pants rule, that is completely man-made. You can't find that anywhere in the Bible, and I'll touch on that a little later. But yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. We have to be careful when we're talking about topics to stay scriptural and not add to the scripture or take away from it. So that's my take on the no pants rule. So there are two primary scriptures in the New Testament that touch on what women should wear and that kind of expound on modesty. So I'm going to read those and then we're going to go into the details about them. The first one is 1 Peter chapter 3 verses 3 through 4, and that says, "Do not let your adorning be external, the braiding of the hair or putting on of gold jewelry or the clothing you wear, but let your adorning be the hidden person of heart with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which in God's sight is very precious." So that's 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 3 through 4. The second scripture is 1 Timothy chapter 2 verse 9, and that one says, "Likewise also that women should adorn themselves in respectable apparel, not with braided hair and gold or pearls or costly attire, but what is proper for a woman who professes godliness with good works." So that is 1 Timothy chapter 2 verse 9. I want to expound for a moment on these two scriptures. Now, they do not literally mean that women shouldn't wear braids or jewelry. This was a popular grooming practice during this time period, wearing elaborate hairstyles and costly jewelry, and that's why it was mentioned in both texts. However, it's more so of telling women that this should not be your primary focus. Your primary focus should not be external adorning, but spiritual adorning, in a sense, where you focus on the inner man, your inner spirit, and not so much as how you look on the outside. Now, this type of comparative text is used throughout the New Testament commonly. I will give you another example that's unrelated, but Luke chapter 14 verse 26, Jesus tells us that we must hate our father and mother and other members of our family if we're going to follow him and be his true disciple. Now, common sense will tell you he's not literally telling us to hate our father and mother, because that will contradict other scripture. This is used to emphasize how dedicated we must be to Jesus in order to follow him. That means nobody else can get in the way, not even yourself. So yes, this is the same type of comparative text about the braids and the jewelry. The next part in both scriptures tell us what should be our more important focus, which is our inner heart. Now, in order for us to know what respectable apparel is, we must know what it's not. People may try to argue and say that modesty is subjective across cultures, but the Bible makes it pretty plain. And I'm going to use some scripture to give you an idea of what is truly modest and what is not modest. The opposite of modest apparel, and I'm going to use these biblical terms, would be any apparel that is lewd, lascivious, sensual, or pretentious. And that's basically sexual in nature, revealing. That's what lewd means. And pretentious just means extremely flashy or show-offy, that type of thing. So I'm going to list some scriptures right here, and you can go back and read those in your free time. But right now we're going to go ahead and get into a list of some clothing items that are not modest. So number one would be too revealing, which would coincide with lewdness. I'm going to read from my list. So this could include lots of cleavage, anything that shows a lot of your breastwork, cheeky shorts, that's really revealing, mini skirts or extremely short dresses. A good rule of thumb is what they used to make us do in school, which is put your hands by your side. If it comes above your hands, then it's probably too short, and you probably can't even really bend or do anything in it without showing something. So, you know, it doesn't have to be down to your ankles, but it definitely shouldn't come above your hands while your hands are at your side. And full abdomen exposure. So that's like the really short crop tops and low rise jeans, or showing your whole stomach. That's pretty revealing. There's really no purpose of doing that, and so that's not something that I would consider modest. Next is too tight clothing. So that includes skin tight pants, skirts, or dresses with deeply engraved panty lines, or where you can see private print areas. Also, anything that shows nipple imprints, and super busty shirts or tops that are just really tight, that really, you know, put out your chest area, that would be considered immodest. Racy and revealing swimsuits and gym attire. So an example of the swimsuits would be like the thong bikinis, the bikini tops that have a lot of the breasts just hanging out. I know people will say, oh, but you're going swimming, but you don't have to be naked to go swimming. Like, a lot of the swimsuits are ridiculous. Let's just be honest with ourselves. And as far as gym attire goes, I see a lot of people these days wearing the matching sports bra and leggings out to the gyms, sports bra and biking shorts out to the gyms. I never really understood why you couldn't just have on a shirt over the sports bra. I don't think that sports bra should be shown, because what is the purpose? I mean, yeah, it's cute to you, but is this also attracting extra attention by wearing just sports bra and leggings? So now when you're at home, or if it's just you and your husband and you have a private jacuzzi or pool, you can wear what type of swimsuit you want to wear. It's your husband. I mean, if you're working out at home, you can wear whatever you want to wear if you're working out in front of the TV. But when you're leaving the house, we have to keep in mind that we're supposed to be glorifying God in the way that we dress. And so those are some things to consider when you're choosing swimsuits and gym attire. Now, this one is going to hurt some feelings, but I have to say it. The nipple piercings, the tongue piercings, and the belly piercings, which is probably the most unpopular opinion that I have this whole video. But the thing about it is, when you have a belly piercing, you're wanting to show your entire stomach. Like, you're going to have your whole stomach exposed so people can see it. Your belly button is lower down in your abdomen, so what is the purpose? Just ask yourself. The nipple piercings, you want someone to look at your chest. The tongue ring, I mean, all of that just screams sexual attention. I'm sexy, you know, I look good, look at me, look at these. So no. Now, the nose ring is fine. A lot of people don't know this, but nose rings are mentioned amongst other types of jewelry in the Bible and were completely normal for people to wear. As a matter of fact, when the servant went to find Isaac a wife and he found Rebecca, he gifted her a nose ring. And I'm going to leave the scripture that talks about nose rings here so you can go and read them for yourself. But there is no issue with nose ring. As much as the older people might despise them, they're just as normal as earrings, okay? So now for the things that are like super flashy or showy. This is like the miscellaneous category. So unnatural hair colors, red, blue, green, yellow, all of that. It just attracts a lot of attention. The super long nails with all of the studs and stuff on them, just really elaborate designs and things of that nature, that attracts a lot of, you know, attention. Crazy designs. Expensive and flashy jewelry. So this would be like what the rappers do. They wear these big, really gigantic diamond studded chains and watches and stuff, and then they wonder why people try to rob them in public. Like, it's being pretentious. You're being very materialistic. You're showing off your wealth in a way that taunts others to an extent. So it's not professing godliness to indulge in these types of things. And then like the 6-inch heels and up, I don't understand why anyone would want to wear those on a regular basis anyway, but 6 inches is just extremely tall. It's extremely high, and when people look at you, that's probably going to be the first thing they see is like, wow, she's wearing some really high heels. Nothing wrong with wearing heels, but the length should not be excessive. And I want to clarify, there's nothing wrong with wearing nails. It's just everything that you do, you need to be examining. How does this look? Does this look normal? Does this look natural? Maybe elegant? Or is this really excessive? Is this really extreme? I just wanted to add this in. I know I mentioned crop tops earlier, but I wanted to say that certain crop tops are okay. If you're wearing a crop top that meets your bottoms or that shows just like a slither of skin of your abdomen, that's not too revealing, that's barely showing any of your abdomen at all, there's not really an issue with that. The issue is when you are revealing your whole belly, where you're showing your whole stomach. That's a lot of skin, you know, and so you just have to kind of dwell within moderation and think, okay, when I put this on, what does this look like? Does this look like a normal outfit, or does this look like I'm going to the club? Finally, before we move on, I have one more dealing with clothing before we go to the next part of the video. I never understood people's obsession with saying that off-the-shoulder dresses or off-the-shoulder tops were immodest. You're literally showing collarbone and arms. There's nothing sexual about off-the-shoulder clothing. I don't get that. Like I said, people make up their own rules and stuff along the way based off of what they think, but you just have to think, is this disrespecting me? Is this disrespecting God? I highly doubt that God would feel disrespected if someone could see your collarbones. No man ever looked at a woman and was like, "Ooh, look at those collarbones, look at those shoulders." Like, not to mention in Victorian times, in the 17, 16, 15, 1400s, a lot of the dresses were designed like that. They were off the shoulder dresses, and it was normal. It was modest. It's shoulders. So let's not do the most, okay? Let's not do the most. Okay, so let's debunk some misconceptions concerning modesty, and this is going to be the final half of the video. So first, modesty does not mean you can't look nice or be beautiful. Okay, we are never told to neglect our outer appearance. Wearing something that you think is flattering or pretty is not immodest. Just make sure that it's respectable. Next, wearing makeup or having a beautiful face is not a sin, and that's not immodest. This is found nowhere in the Bible, okay? And you can couple wearing makeup with a personal grooming method, because that's exactly what it is. When you get ready to go somewhere and you pick out your outfit, you pick out your jewelry, you put on makeup to make your face more alive, maybe to enhance your natural features. There is absolutely nothing wrong with makeup. There's nothing sexual about makeup. If anything, it can be deceptive on how a person really looks, but that's only some people. Most people who wear makeup look how they look with it without it. And not to mention, there are some people that are strikingly beautiful without makeup, that if they walk down the street, you know, people would just be looking at them because they're beautiful. Is that a sin for them to look that way? No, it's not. That's how God made them. You know, so you can't say, oh, well, because a woman is making herself more beautiful by wearing makeup, that's immodest, that's a sin. That's not true. There are plenty of women that are beautiful without it, that still draw in that attention, and they're not trying to. That's just what it is. And so we can't get wrapped up in the whole business of makeup trying to make that something sinful, and it's not. Additionally, I do have scripture for you that would coincide with this. We're going back to Genesis chapter 24, verse 16, where the servant of Isaac finds Rebekah, and he thinks that she would be a good fit for Isaac to be his wife. And so in the scripture, it says the young woman was very attractive in appearance, a maiden whom no man had known. So this describes her as being attractive. You know, there's nothing wrong with being attractive, okay? Okay, so this next one is really important, so listen closely. Your body type does not make you immodest, just like your face doesn't. And this is one of the more harmful things that we have pushed about modesty for the longest time, that if you're a curvier woman, that you need to wear potato sacks and garbage bags in order to conceal your whole figure, because if a man looks at you and lusts after you, then you're sinning. You're inviting that in. And that's just not true, guys. That's just not true. The physical beauty of a woman's body is not sinful. It is only used sinfully in certain situations, but it itself is not sinful. We are supposed to be attractive to men. That is a natural feminine attribute. When God designed us, he designed us with this in mind. That was not by accident. A woman having soft curves or beautiful frame or beautiful shape was not an accident, okay? The key, as with anything else in being modest, is to not indecently expose those assets and use them for sexual immorality. Now, I'm going to pop in a scripture right here just to show you that it's not sinful for a woman to have a beautiful form. We're going to go to Genesis chapter 29, verses 16 through 17. And this is a story about Jacob when he finds Leah and Rachel, okay? And this compares the sisters. Now listen closely. It says, now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. And Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance. Now, what does that mean? Now, we already covered in Genesis chapter 24, when we were talking about Rebecca, that she was beautiful in appearance. She had a beautiful face. Okay, in this scripture that talks about Rachel, it says she was beautiful in form and appearance. So that means that her face was beautiful and she had a nice body. Let's just be honest about it. She had a beautiful figure. She had a beautiful form. Now, how would they know that unless they could see it? And the fact of the matter is that dressing in baggy or extremely loose clothing is not going to stop men from lusting after you. Men are going to lust anyway. The key to absolving lust is to not cover yourself from head to toe, but it's for everyone being personally responsible for their own eyes and their own choices. Okay, lust is a personal responsibility. That's why all throughout the New Testament we are told, all of us are told, to exercise self-control, because you're going to see a person that's attractive and they could have on respectable apparel, right? But there are attractive people in the world, okay? And it's not a sin for them to be attractive. They're supposed to be attractive if they're attractive. But the key to absolving lust, and I see this misconception a lot in the Christian community, is for women to basically not have any type of fitting to their clothing. Their clothes are not supposed to fit properly. They're supposed to be too big or too loose, and that's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and I'm calling it right now. It's ridiculous. There's nothing in the Bible that says that you have to wear extremely loose or baggy garments in order to stop men from lusting after you. There's nothing in the Bible that tells you to stop men from lusting after you, because like I said, it's a personal responsibility that we all carry. If you are doing what God asks you to do and you are wearing respectable apparel, then if somebody lusts after you, then that is not your responsibility. That is their own personal struggle that they should consult with God about. And I also want to say that lusting and being attractive to someone are 2 different things, or finding someone attractive, I would say. You can acknowledge if a person is attractive, if they're beautiful, if they have a nice body, like, oh, they look good, and move on about your day. Lusting is when you are desiring someone sexually. You are thinking about them in a sexual manner, or things that you could do with them sexually. That is lust. You are thinking about them passionately. That is totally different from acknowledging that someone is attractive. So don't commingle the 2, I would say. Now, some people in the church try to use Romans chapter 14, verse 21, which is the scripture that talks about if it causes your brother to stumble, then don't do it. As it pertains to modesty. And it's a reason why this is not mentioned anywhere near scriptures that talk about modesty. That's because it's not talking about how women dress. This scripture was talking to the brethren in the church who, there was some recent converts from the Old Testament law in which they had plentiful traditions where they didn't eat certain things or they didn't drink certain things. They abstained from certain meats. And in the New Testament, you didn't have to do that. All of that was abolished under Christ. And so there was nothing that you couldn't eat. But some of them were still holding on to the old traditions. And in this text, Paul is just telling them not to be judgmental, not cause them to stumble. You know, if they want to continue avoiding this meat or that meat, don't let this cause disruption between the brotherhood. Just respect their decision. If they get offended, if you eat it around them, don't eat it around them. That was what he was telling them. That's that whole text, okay? To keep the peace in the church for the people that maybe were new converts and they still held on to some of those old Jewish traditions. It was to keep the peace. Just be mindful of what your brother has an issue with. Be mindful of that. Even if you choose to do it, you know, it's not a sin for you to eat meat, but if your brother has an issue with it, just don't do it around him. So we're not going to take scripture out of context and apply this to modesty because, like I said, you are not responsible for someone else lusting after you. Now, truth be told, nobody should be going around trying to get someone to lust after them. No woman should be doing that. The reason why self-control is mentioned so much throughout the Bible is that God knew that we would lust after each other. Women lust after men, men lust after women. As long as you are wearing respectable clothing, you're not being lewd or sexual in the manner that you dress, then you are not attributing to this lust. I promise you. You having a figure, a shape is not attributing to this lust. You can't help how you were made. And as long as you are dressing your body appropriately, then it is not your problem or responsibility for someone else's sin. That is something that they should consult with God about if they have an issue with that. So saying all that to say, please wear clothes that fit. Like I said in the beginning, not skin tight where you're cutting off your circulation, you're showing prints and things like that, but wear clothes that fit. Wear your size. If you're a medium, wear a medium. If you're small, wear a small. If you're large, wear a large. If you happen to have a shape or a frame, it's not a sin. God made you that way. You look good, you know. That might be what attracts your husband. I'm just going to be honest. The first thing that we look at when we see other people is if they're attractive to us or not. And everybody has a different desirability, you know, when it comes to other humans. But ultimately, that's the first thing that you usually see in a person that you date or you marry, the first thing. And then after that, after conversing with them and spending time with them and all of those things, you start to get to know them as a person, and that either makes you more attracted to them or less attracted to them. But if we're being honest, the first thing that we see when we look at someone is how they look. And that was by design. That is not an accident. The next myth to debunk is that modesty means you should just wear skirts and dresses. This is not true. This is not listed anywhere in the Bible. And as a matter of fact, if you know your history, you would know that in biblical times, nobody wore pants. Both men and women wore tunic-like garments, cloaks, robe-like garments, which were essentially like dresses. Everybody. So that does not prove anything. Pants actually weren't even invented around that time. Pants didn't come about until much later in the centuries. And I think one of the primary reasons pants became fashionable for women in America was because of horseback riding. It was easier for women to get on horses and ride them without the long dresses and skirts being in the way. But nevertheless, there's nothing in the Bible that says wearing pants in particular is a sin. So the verse that people try to use is Deuteronomy chapter 22 verse 5, where these were some of the laws given to the Israelites, and it was saying that a man should not put on a woman's garment and a woman should not put on a man's garment. And even with that scripture, that proves that there was an obvious difference in the way that men clothes and women clothes looked. The male satchel that they were wearing during that time didn't look like the female satchel, you know. Hers was probably more flattering to her form. And so anyway, there's a such thing as women's pants. There's a such thing as men's pants even today. And so as the fashion changes or the type of garments we wear changes over the years. That's what that particular verse was speaking about. There's nothing wrong with women wearing trousers or pants. It's perfectly okay. So we're finally down to the last bit, and in this one I'm debunking the myth that you can't be fashionable and modest. Yes, you can. You can wear fashionable clothing. The thing to remember, as with everything that you wear, is that as long as it is respectable apparel, that you can wear it. You can have a fashion taste. You can have taste in clothing or what type of shoes you like. There's no, oh, you can't wear, designer. Like, you can wear designer if you choose. Just make sure that you are moderate in your expression of it. You're not throwing it in people's face that you have on designer. If you're going to choose to wear quality clothing or jewelry or whatever, you don't have to flaunt how much it costs. You don't have to be pretentious with it. But that does not mean you can't wear it. Finally, guys, some people will say, oh, well, a good rule of thumb is if you wouldn't wear it to church, then you shouldn't be wearing it at all. That is bogus for so many reasons, and I'm going to tell you why. For one, are sweatpants immodest? Are big t-shirts immodest? No, but those are lounge clothes. I wouldn't wear lounge clothes to church, but does that mean it's immodest? No. Same for pajamas. Are pajamas immodest? No. But would I wear them to church? Absolutely not, because they're not for the occasion. You can't use that logic. If you wouldn't wear it to church, you shouldn't be wearing it, because there's a lot of things that we wouldn't wear to church. Essentially, when we go to worship God, we want to look our best. We want to be extremely presentable, and lounge clothes are not appropriate for that. And that goes for other types of clothing as well. But that does not mean that these types of clothing are immodest just because you can't wear them to church. That's really not a good way to gauge modesty. If I'm going to a formal event and I have to wear a extravagant ball gown to the event, I wouldn't wear that to church either, because it's way too formal. And so you see what I'm saying? This is more so of an it fits the occasion type of thing versus if it's actually immodest or not. There's modest and immodest clothing in all categories, including church wear. So that basically explains why if I wouldn't wear it to church, I shouldn't wear it at all. That type of thinking just doesn't make any type of sense. All right, so this is the end of the video. I hope that everything was explained in a manner where you could understand it. Just make sure you're respecting your body. If you're respecting your body, you're respecting God automatically. And like I said, as long as you're not too revealing and you're not trying to attract sexual attention, then you're fine. Being naturally attractive is not the same thing as trying to attract sexual attention. So do not intermingle the two. Let's get rid of this curvy body bias, okay? Let's get rid of this women's curve bias in general. Women are supposed to have curves. Women are supposed to be attractive to men. But as long as you're not disrespecting your body and disrespecting yourself by what you're wearing and it's respectable apparel, then you are being modest. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell for future videos. Bye.